them. The two are the two great American philosophies. There are only two: transcendentalism, that would be Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau, and pragmatism, that would be William James and several other people. James said things are what they do. Well, that's an American attitude. It's also a can-do attitude. And John Dewey invented a whole system of higher education, now forgotten lamentably, that was based on project-based learning. Now it's turned to teach to the test. And Emerson had a way of suggesting the eminence of things, that visions come to us that you can regard. You're looking at a way of life. You're looking at values that are held, that are involved in practice and interaction and passions and struggles. Often the best way to express that is in the way you look at a work of art, in which everything hangs. Pencils are like this. They're like a work of art in which everything so exquisitely fits that its meaning just emanates out of it. You know, instead of explaining it, you take the whole thing. And in the most meaningful decisions we make in life are not based on rational analysis, as you all know, and they're really based on very often those moments where your heart and your head and your gut, you know, your soul leaps out of your body and says, "I am that," and that's how it comes to be. That's why in explaining how our lives have changed, we usually tell that in stories, not in terms of logical analysis. And so, you know, let's be proud to be Yankees. Listen, we still have a great deal that we can contribute to the world, you know.
Also,
You know, despite our national embarrassments.
You know, one of the great people to describe Burning Man was Tocqueville, who talked about the Americans' need to associate, and the fact that in a democracy, basically you don't get social capital unless people come together and do things together. And he saw this, 150 years ago, and also pointed out that you get that when you're actually creating and working on stuff together. And so the fact that, and this is especially true in a time when there's so many alternative ways of congregating electronically that aren't as immersive and not as real. Gladwell wrote about this when he talked about kind of Facebook revolutions versus the civil rights movement. And so you see something here that is at once deeply American and about building of a community, building of an association, working on something together. And Tocqueville also talked about the fact that these were very diverse people, and the fact that people with so many different walks of lives coming together and doing something together, and you see that here. And when you talk about, this is, what was the word you used? This is either what we believe in or what's going on now. There's something very contemporary about this. So at this moment in history when there's so much mediated content that may disassociate us, the need for immediacy turns out it's like you need to go in the desert and reclaim some of that. This whole thing is kind of like a giant Sabbath where you can disconnect. The civic participation at a time when both the left and the right are completely disgusted with the polity, and now you see at Burning Man people from both sides coming in. So there's something very vibrant about this. And he kind of plays the role of Socrates in that this thing's a big question, right? So then we have to go discuss it and sort it out. And I think that's both here and then up in a more mystical place in the desert.
John, I couldn't help but when Larry talked about the principles being tweet-like. You know what? You know, man, you've been along for the ride here the whole way. How do you see the world of technology interacting with the world of Burning Man? And you know, that's a huge question, right? I mean, do these have anything to say to the world of technology?
Yeah, look, these are basically decent sort of principles for creating any small town in the desert. You know, or large agglomeration of relatively independent spirits across the globe in some borderless, unmediated condition. I mean, these are not. You know, when he first started out with this, I thought, oh shit. You know, there it goes. I mean, you know, religion is fine as long as it doesn't have a doctrine. The second, it's got a set of rules and principles, and it's done for. But these, you know, I can live with that.
I would point out, for people who follow language, that they notably lack the imperative mood. They don't say you should do something. They don't obligate you to do anything. They describe action.
Yeah, they mentioned some qualities.
Very man's verb.
Yeah.
There's no thou shalt.
No, it's not there.
No.
It isn't there. These aren't absolute edicts. In the new project, some of the governance is going to be done out of what's called the Philosophical Center, which will consider our entire history and what those values are as we look at action itself. And and the motto of the Philosophic Center is a statement by William James: belief is thought at rest. And the moment it ceases, you mistake the belief for the thing itself, then you're perverting your knowledge and you're distorting the world. And so we hope to do is to continue for years and years to discuss, to examine them, re-examine them, examine them in new contexts, let them challenge one another, let them inform one another. You know, it's kind of Talmudic, what we're trying to do, and it's like the story of the, okay, I'm going to tell a joke about a Jewish mother. She was down at the beach and holding her infant in her arms, and a wave came piling in and plucked the baby from her arms. And she fell down on her knees and she beseeched God that if only he would save her baby, she would praise him for all of her days. And on the next wave, sure enough, the baby came back and was back in her arms. She looked up at the heavens and said, "He had a hat." And that's how we want to regard the principles. We want to be able to argue with them. We want to be able to let them argue with one another, interrogate one another. We don't, and so if we continue on that, we can remain remarkably sane without falling to John's trap of belief, whereby things are absolute and you cease to think or feel.
And there is something sort of Talmudic about this. I mean, many years now, Larry and I we have appeared at some unannounced point somewhere on the playa and had a general discourse on the current state of practical anarchy as manifested before us, without any preconceived notions about where the other one was coming from on the subject, and our own, cynicism is born of many, many years of this. And it has a very Talmudic quality. I mean, both of us are rapt believers and deep skeptics, I would say.
Oh yeah, I shock people by seeing that